Hello from the Parenting Network. I am Mr. Deshaun, and I am glad to be here with you again to do another lesson of making proud choices and relate. So today we're going to get into our lesson, which is going to focus on building healthy relationships. So we're going to focus on what does it take to build a healthy relationship, and what are some of the things that we should actually think about before getting into a relationship to do our best to ensure that it is healthy for us. And we want to make sure that we are putting our heart into it because it does take effort and it does take work. So one thing that we do know that people do have a hope to be happy in a relationship. Some people may have the belief that they want to be happily ever after. In order to be happy or even happily ever after, no one goes into a relationship thinking that it's going to be unhealthy. No one goes in thinking this is not going to work out. I will feel worse about myself. This is really a bad idea. It is going to get ugly, right? We're not really thinking those things, but we are oftentimes hoping with our fingers crossed that things are going to work out, and not realizing that there's work and effort and sometimes pre-thought and even pre-work that sometimes we're having to do with ourselves in order to make sure that relationship is healthy, and the communication with our partner is very important. So no matter the situation, we want to make sure that we're being mindful and thoughtful before even entering into a relationship and what that might look like. So one thing I want to do is explore, what do you think? Oftentimes teenagers and preteens even are told that they don't have opinions or their opinions don't matter. I totally disagree. I believe you guys have a wealth of knowledge, thoughts, and even opinions that if you took time to think about in advance, it may be beneficial when you're talking about, okay, what do I want out of a relationship? What matters to me? What's important to me? So some things to think about. We have a few questions here or statements that you can apply to. What do you think about? For example, what do you think about a teen being in a relationship just because they wanted a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a partner? What do you think about a teen being in a relationship just because they wanted a boyfriend, girlfriend, or a partner? So in thinking, what about someone who just wants to be in a relationship just to say they're in a relationship? What are your thoughts and opinions about that? So take time, think about that. Maybe even write it out so you can have something to look at and reflect on. What do you think about dating someone when you knew he or she practiced abstinence? Right, that was their goal. They wanted to practice abstinence, which is in this case choosing not to engage in sex or sexual behavior. Do you have any thoughts or opinions about that? I'm sure you may. What do you think of staying in a relationship after you knew it was over? Hmm. Right, the idea of, because sometimes you have a strong feeling that this isn't working, this isn't going to work, this is really going nowhere. But what do you think about staying there even though you might have those feelings? What do you think? Do you think it's possible for guys and girls to just be friends? Why or why not? Right? Is it possible for individuals to just be friends no matter of their gender or gender identity even? What do you think? Can guys be victims of dating violence? What do you think? What do you think when it comes to how important are your friends' opinions about your boyfriend or girlfriend or partner or significant other? How important are your friends' opinions when it comes to that significant other? What do you think would be a deal breaker on a first date? So, deal breaker is the idea of something that you would be like, nope, I'm not feeling that. That's a turn off. That's a no. No, not working for me. So, what would be something that would be like that for you on a first date? What is the best way for teens to learn about healthy relationships? What do you think about that? What is the best way for teens to learn about healthy relationships? And then finally, I'll ask you, what do you think about your parents having a say about the people you date? Be honest. What are your thoughts about that? Oh, there is one more. What are your thoughts about the possible negative consequences of a teen's behavior? So what are some things you could think of that could have negative consequences as concerning your behavior as a teen. So when you're thinking about healthy relationships, we do know that there are qualities that apply towards making a relationship more healthy, and more beneficial for us. And then there are qualities that you can find in a relationship that is unhealthy, and not beneficial for us, that can cause harm. And so we want to identify what some of those things are. And you guys have this worksheet available to you. So if you have a chance, definitely go and check it out. You can get it off of your classroom. And we're just going to go over a few things. So maybe if you want to jot down some notes on a piece of paper of what you think might be qualities that show appreciation, that show appropriate communication, balance, boundaries, and empathy. These are all things that we believe are necessary for a healthy relationship. And on the other side of that, we see that emotional abuse, verbal abuse, controlling or physical abuse, crossing the line, sexual abuse, and blaming are often what we see as indicators of an unhealthy relationship. Can there be more? Absolutely. Can there be more things in a healthy relationship? Absolutely. But these are 5 areas of each that we know are often there to help define them as either healthy or unhealthy. So when you're looking at my relationships here, one side you see the healthy are more of the building blocks. These are the things that can help a relationship stand strong and sturdy. Over here on the other side, we see that some of these things often are what help to damage, destroy, and disrupt a relationship. So we want to try our best to find the qualities that will help us build those relationships. So when you're thinking about appreciation, that would be respect, support, acceptance. I'm sure you guys can think of some other things you might put into the category of showing appreciation. When it comes to what might be considered emotional abuse or what is emotional abuse, you may see attributes of jealousy, being manipulative, on the silent treatment towards your partner. Those are things that can be really indicators of emotional abuse. When it comes to appropriate communication, we want to focus on listening, making I statements, speaking from your perspective of how I feel concerning situation, or when you're telling someone about something that's going on, or even a problem you might have in a relationship. You want to use I statements, and then also paraphrasing. When you're listening to your partner, you're taking what they're saying and you're saying, "This is what I'm hearing you say," and you're repeating it. That is a very healthy quality of a relationship, and you're not doing it with attitude of being sarcastic, but you're actually doing it because you want to make sure you're hearing what they're saying appropriately and correctly. So verbal abuse, you'll see maybe yelling or outbursts. You'll see name calling and put downs. These are indicators that someone is really not focused on listening or truly communicating, but often insulting and causing someone to feel harm in some way. With balance, there's compromise. Do unto others as you want done unto you. But also, I'll take it one step further and say, do unto others as they want to be done, and how they want to be treated. And you have to do that by finding out and having that conversation, right? So the golden rule plus is what I would say there, and fairness, right? Being understanding and trying to keep a balance, and being honest with yourself. If you have a set of things that you expect, you should also be giving those things as well. When you look at controlling or physical abuse, you might find stalking, that obsessiveness of a person, neglecting someone, being demanding. We also see it in a lot of situations where someone's demanding someone give them their password, or they are demanding they see someone's phone, who they're talking to. That's controlling behavior, and that is very much a component of unhealthy relationships. When you talk about boundaries, think of limitations, and setting those limits with your partner, and your significant other. You want to have personal space, setting those boundaries of personal space. What am I comfortable with? What am I not comfortable with? What type of touch am I okay with or not okay with? And being honest and open with each other. Those are all parts of setting boundaries. Now, crossing the line, that sexual assault or sexual abuse piece is assault. Assault can be a part of that. That's that physical harm that you may place on someone or have placed on you, threatening behavior, blackmail, um, treating someone unfairly or threatening to expose them. These are all pieces of crossing the line and could even lead to sexual abuse. Then we have empathy. People look at empathy and say it's putting yourself in someone else's shoes, looking at things from their perspective. So parts of that is caring, understanding, and being patient. And then blaming often is found in unhealthy relationships where you're finding fault with the other person, despite what you may have brought to the situation. There might be denial of what you're doing as far as your behavior or what the other person is doing. You're not recognizing it for what it is as unhealthy behavior. And then also the not taking responsibility, right, for things that we may do in a relationship with our partner. So being really open and honest to these things and really looking at these things in the whole can help us identify whether our relationships are on the side of healthy, where we have that good building, those good building blocks, or they're unhealthy. And are those building blocks actually coming down? And are we finding ourselves with some chaos on our hands? So the question that we're going to ask is, why do teens stay in unhealthy relationships? We know there are a vast number of reasons on why teens might stay in unhealthy relationships, but if you can think of some, you can go ahead and write those down, and then we'll just go over this and see what we've come up with as reasons that we've heard from teens why teens might stay in unhealthy relationships. They feel connected and loving toward them, and that they hope they will change, right? They feel connected to that partner. They hope that partner will change. That might be a reason a teen will stay in a healthy relationship. They are embarrassed. They don't want to be alone or single. So there may be that bit of embarrassment. And that's a natural feeling. But we do know that that is sometimes what teens say. They don't want to feel embarrassed. They don't want to feel like they couldn't make it work. Uh, they have no energy to fight or move on. Their life may have been threatened. So there might be that, right? The threat of harm might cause someone to stay in an unhealthy relationship. Their self-esteem has been worn down. They don't think they can live without the other person. So we do know that these are, again, reasons why people might stay. We're not making any value judgment on whether it's a good or a bad reason. It's a reason. And any reason a person has is a fair reason for where they are in at that point in time. They are financially dependent on them. Leaving would be a disaster. So some teens might find themselves in a situation where they're with a partner who does help them financially or has given them financial support. And it may be difficult to leave that situation if that financial support is what you're depending on. Or they and their parents, the parents of that child, and think it would be bad to leave, right? So maybe they have a child with that individual. And so they're thinking that if they have a child with that individual, it would be bad to leave or it will cause harm to the child that they're with. So we want to just be clear that these are, again, reasons teens stay in unhealthy relationships. And we want to make sure that we're not, again, being judgmental when we hear of anyone's reasons for staying in the space that they are right now. But we want to be supportive and help each other realize and recognize that there is a way to work towards exiting an unhealthy relationship and also planning ahead so that we can work to our best ability to avoid unhealthy relationships if we can. And so they're thinking that if they have a child with an individual, it would be bad to leave or it will cause harm to the child that they're with. So we want to just be clear that these are, again, reasons teens stay in unhealthy relationships. And we want to make sure that we're not, again, being judgmental when we hear of anyone's reasons for staying in the space that they are right now. But we want to be supportive and help each other realize and recognize that there is a way to work towards exiting an unhealthy relationship and also planning ahead so that we can work to our best ability to avoid unhealthy relationships if we can. All right, so here you have two sheets, two lists. You guys actually might have these in your classroom folders. If you don't, you can take a sheet of paper and just write down deal breakers and number it 1 to 10 and deal makers 1 to 10. And what we're asking here is for you to just to think about some things that would be deal breakers, things that you may not want in a relationship that you actually feel like I just don't want at all. I know I don't want this. And what would be deal makers? What are these things or qualities that you would look for that would help you feel like you're building a healthy relationship? So, for example, I could think of a deal breaker. For me, it would be a person who is just extremely rude to other individuals. Like if I'm on a date with someone and they're just extremely rude to someone that may be serving us, for me, that's going to be that's a deal breaker. Because if you're rude to someone you don't even know, it makes me wonder how you'll be when you're comfortable with someone. Deal breaker. So opposite of that, for me, a deal maker would be someone who can communicate effectively or communicate well. That's for me a deal maker. Uh, Again, another example of a deal breaker, someone who is very untidy or messy, right? If you're constantly messy, that's going to be a deal breaker for me. The opposite of that would be someone who is clean, tidy, takes care of things, takes care of themselves. That would be my deal maker, right? So you can think of your deal breakers, and what would be the opposite of that? Very likely would be a deal maker for you, right? So go ahead and do that exercise and see what you come up with. I would love to be able to see your list. It would be great to see that sometime. And then we have a couple of activities that you can do on your own time. But I will actually walk you through the healthy versus unhealthy just a little bit. And then you have the relationship quiz. So the relationship quiz is something that you can do on your own time, and you can just look at this video. You can pause it, and you do also, I believe, have the worksheet in your classroom, and you can just mark yes or no for each statement when you think of a relationship that you have. It could be a partner relationship, or it could be maybe a friendship. Maybe you have a very good friend and you don't have a partner. But what about very good friendships, right? And do you and your very good friend do these things, yes or no? And then what you'll do is score that. So you'll count up the number of yeses that you have, and then that will help you kind of get an idea. It's not, again, scientifically significant in how we did it, but we're just looking at the more yeses you have, the more likely it is that your relationship may be teetering or in the unhealthy range. Doesn't mean you have to end the relationship, but it might give you some idea of things maybe to work towards and things you might want to look at with that friend moving forward. Something to think about. So for the healthy versus unhealthy, I want you guys to take a moment. You can pause here and just go through this list that you have of different scenarios that you might find in a relationship and decide for yourself whether they are healthy or unhealthy scenarios, right? Or healthy or unhealthy situations. So go ahead, take a pause, and I will walk you through what the answers are in just a moment. All right, pause now and go ahead. Use the paper that you have if you are able to download it from your classroom or on a sheet of paper, number it 1 through 10, and then next to that, just write for each statement, healthy or unhealthy. All right, now that you have done that, let's take an exploration of these things here and see what we've got. So for number 1, Jordan ignores her own needs trying to make her partner happy. Jordan ignores her own needs trying to make her partner happy. What do you say to that? Healthy or unhealthy? Healthy, unhealthy? That would be unhealthy. Unhealthy in the sense that if you're totally ignoring your own needs, that means you're not able to allow yourself to speak to what you want or you need in that relationship. And oftentimes you're catering entirely to that partner. That could be very unhealthy. It can lead to resentment and other issues in the long run. So you want to be very careful about that. When Brian and Dana argue, they tend to raise their voices and sometimes yell at each other to get their point across. What you guys think? Healthy, unhealthy? Yeah, that would probably be unhealthy, right? If we're arguing and we're raising our voices, we often know that raised voices can escalate to physical altercation as well. But if we're both yelling and no one is listening, that's not beneficial to the relationship. So that can be a destructive aspect of a relationship when we're not listening to one another. Number three, Jolie's joking and playful teasing always turns into put downs and name calling. So if you have a situation like this, would that be healthy or unhealthy? Probably unhealthy. Yeah. If we're talking about joking and teasing, all and it's always a put down or name calling involved, it's really not then just joking, right? There's some seriousness to it. If I'm always saying things that I know that might be harmful to you or you don't like, it's not really playful at a certain point. So we have to be real mindful of that. So if someone is constantly doing that, that's an indicator of an unhealthy situation. When Elizabeth is having a stressful day, her partner recognizes she needs time to be alone and is willing to talk when she's ready. I think you guys might know that that's pretty healthy, right? When your partner is willing to allow you to have some space and time to breathe after a day of stress, it is actually very healthy that they're giving you that space, and maybe be willing to talk when you're ready to talk. That's awesome. Quinn refuses to stop texting his or her partner at 10 p.m., 1 a.m., and 3 a.m. to say I love you, just to say I love you. Right? Sounds so sweet. Some of you might be thinking that's pretty cool. That's kind of healthy. Well, the thing that stands out for me is this right here, the idea that the partner refuses, which means there may have been some indication that you would you please not, could you not, maybe my parents would not like you to call at this time. And so then that turns into an unhealthy space, right? When that request is being ignored. So when someone is ignoring what you're asking of them, that can definitely be an indicator that they're maybe pushy, that maybe there's obsessiveness, there's a compulsiveness that's there that you want to be really mindful of and pay attention to. So these are all the red flags that we talk about, right, in relationships. Jefferson becomes anxious when making decisions, worrying about how his or her partner might react. So if you're constantly being nervous and worrying about your partner's response to something, how they may react, that's an unhealthy space to be in. We understand, wanting to make sure your partner is taken care of and they feel good about things that are happening. But if it's a worry, that means there's probably things or actions they take when they are upset that might cause you to be nervous or hesitant. So being really mindful of that. Austin and their partner encourage each other to participate in activities separately from one another. Yeah, you go ahead and have your space, do your thing, and we'll come back together and we can hang out. Yep. I think that's pretty healthy, right? We often find that couples that have other activities separate from what they do with each other all the time have a healthy respect and admiration and desire to be around each other when they can be. Right? So that can be a very healthy thing. Shay is uncomfortable with the idea of having sex and can't talk honestly and openly with their partner about that. That can make for some troubling times if we are unable to have that conversation. Again, is that partner becoming upset? Does that partner want to force an individual to carry on with what they're not comfortable with? That could be concerning and that is unhealthy. Seth and Ellis support each other's goals and dreams, and they want to see each other succeed. That is quite healthy, right? Especially and hopefully the dreams and goals and dreams are positive and they can support that and they can see each other strive and yet be together in that. Number 10, Jody and his or her partner or their partner discuss that they are not ready to be in a committed relationship and agree it's better to break up and move on. It might hurt a little bit, but that if we both can come to that understanding, that is quite healthy in the long run for us to say, you know what, this isn't working for us. We know, yes, I do care about you, or maybe I thought I did, but I don't know anymore. But if we move on and maintain some civility, that is very healthy. So now that you've done that, if you want to, you can go ahead, if you haven't already done so, list 3 qualities of healthy relationships, 3 qualities of unhealthy relationships that you can think of. And that'll be a total of 6 qualities, right? Three healthy, 3 unhealthy. Think about it and see what you come up with. And something that we want you to focus on and to think about as we wrap up is that you have a right to have personal healthy relationships. And this is my personal healthy relationship bills of rights. And it reads, I have the right to be in an equal and healthy relationship with another person. I have the right to be who I am and not to change to meet the expectations of others. I have the right to have my limits respected and to disagree to requests that feel uncomfortable. I have the right to change my mind. I have the responsibility to leave relationships that are unhealthy for me and to let go of people who don't support my goals and dreams. You have that right. And I hope you embrace that right. And I hope you take time to figure out what is healthy for you, what works for you, what do you want out of relationships that you have in your life, not just as a teen, but throughout the course of your life. You have a right to healthy relationships, and I support you in that right. And so I hope you will definitely take what we talked about, process it, put it into practice when that time is right for you. So thank you for hanging out with us, and I appreciate you being here. And I look forward to having more time and more conversations with you going forward. Take care.